Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Fort.
And I'm Dalton Gentry.
And we're here for part 3 of a 7-part series as we meander through the forest of the Hunger Games.
New York Times best-selling author Suzanne Collins.
Yeah.
Look at that. Bit of a surprise, too. Adrian, you're kind of just, you're burning through this one.
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. So, recap?
Yeah.
Let's go with that. So after a little bit of a build-up, the games begin, and Katniss avoids the slaughter in the cornucopia. Peeta has actually turned, and he has teamed up with the Careers, as Katniss runs and hides with some basic supplies that she managed to snag against Haymitch's wishes. After narrowly avoiding some manufactured fire from the game masters themselves, she finds Rue hidden in a tree, and kind of a little quasi-alliance is formed between her and Rue, just kind of like a general, we're good here. And Katniss manages to drop a hornet's nest of, I wrote it down. Tracker jackers. A nest of tracker jackers onto the Careers and Peeta. Actually, it does kill a couple of them. And we are left at the end with, again, Peeta saving Katniss as she's trying to get the bow and arrow from one of the corpses. So, Adrian, where we want to go with this?
I would like to start with an example of stunning writing.
Okay.
On my page 139, and I think we've got slightly different copies. Let me just read this first. My covers are drawn back, but there is no sign of the red-headed Avox girl. I wish I knew her name. I should have asked it. She could have written it down, maybe, or acted out, but perhaps that would only result in punishment for her. I take a shower and scrub the gold paint, the makeup, the scent of beauty from my body. All that remains of the design team's efforts are the flames on my nails. I decide to keep them as a reminder of who I am to the audience. Katniss, the girl who was on fire. Perhaps it will give me something to hold on to in days to come. Not particularly stunning prose, I will grant you that. But the idea, do you catch what's going on there?
Yes.
What?
Where she's basically trying to cling to her humanity.
Right, but on sort of an outside of the characters, on a level inside the text, outside of the character's rationale or perspective.
Oh, she's strategizing as well.
A little bit outside of that. Take yourself back a little bit. Look at what's going on. My covers are drawn back, but there is no sign of the red-headed Avox girl. I don't know her name. She is a no one. Her life is suffering.
Okay. I
take the shower and scrub the gold paint and the makeup and the scent of beauty from my body. I am gorgeous. And even when I'm taking off all of these ornaments, I am desirable.
Okay.
So what's going on there? My covers are drawn back through, but perhaps that would only result in punishment for her. That is Katniss seeing the life that could have become of her. She was born into obscurity. Okay. She was born into this garbage district, and she had no voice.
Okay.
She was born into a life where she had no voice. However, had she been born in District 1, she would have had the gold paint. She always would have had the makeup. She always would have had the perfumes. Right? Okay. So she is, at the moment, stuck between both of these lives. She is a faceless, voiceless girl who has the ornaments of District 1. But she is important because she's been chosen for these games. So District 12, Katniss, no longer exists, just as the Avox is absent from that scene.
Interesting. Okay. It's not bad.
Yeah.
I dug here. There's my library copy here. Just the 140, the next page over. They are the same pages, by the way. The more anxious I am to find sleep, the more it eludes me. Finally, I am too restless to even stay in bed. I pace the floor, heart beating too fast, breathing too short. My room feels like a prison cell. If I don't get air soon, I'm going to start throwing things again. I run down the hall to the door to the roof. It's not only unlocked, but ajar. Perhaps someone forgot to close it, but it doesn't matter. The energy field enclosing the roof prevents any desperate form of escape, and I'm not looking to escape, only to fill my lungs with air. I want to see the sky and the moon on the last night that no one will be hunting me. It ain't bad. It really is not. As far as a writer's standpoint, if this was in any other book, I'd be like, all right, I can get behind this. It's well done. There's just a stigma behind it because it's considered young adult literature.
Well, there's not just a stigma behind it. We are, what are we on? Like page one. We're around page one, around page 200 now.
Yeah.
The writing has steadily declined on a sentence by sentence basis, right? The ideas are still the same sort of ideas being displayed. Like I say, there's that wonderful contrast in that one scene, but we also get this gem of a sentence. And a half-gallon plastic bottle with a cap for carrying water that's bone dry. The water's bone dry? What is that? I'm not even sure what's going on there. And a half-gallon plastic bottle with a cap for carrying water. The cap is for carrying water, and the water is bone dry.
Okay.
Let me read that one more time. And a half-gallon plastic bottle with a cap for carrying water that's bone dry.
Okay.
That is a miserable sentence.
Poor writing.
That should never have existed. That I guarantee you, this thing went through a lot of drafts. That sentence should get restructured. That sentence is awful. That is a bottom 10 sentence of all books I've ever read type of sentence. But I don't know how to contrast those things, right? Okay. So, but in Suzanne Collins' defense, I tout Hemingway as one of the greatest writers of all time, right?
Okay.
Hemingway also has terribly awkward sentences from time to time that if you take yourself out of the flow of the story, like when I was in the flow of the story, I completely got that.
Yeah.
Right? 2 or 3 paragraphs later, I was like, wait a minute. My English sensor went off.
It clicked on back
and I was
there.
like, wait.
His spider senses were tingling.
And see, that's the thing. Spider senses are beforehand. English sensors, they go off afterwards.
That's fair.
So we're a little bit slower.
As is with any English literature major's career, 20 years down the road, you're like, oh.
I could work for the city.
I should have done that. So we've talked quite a bit, actually, in this series on the Hunger Games about the writing specifically.
If I could actually, one of my points, since we just talked about that, you made the point about having your degree and saying, oh, well, I should have done something else. We're in a story about 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds, right? On 179, if I do continue away from the fire, won't I be walking straight into the weapons of the careers? That's when it dawned on me that career is a bad guy here. When you were 17 years old, the idea of a career was terrifying.
Okay.
It meant the end of your life, right?
That's
you
interesting.
watched your mom and your dad go through this. You watched your uncle and your aunt go through this. I don't want a career, baby. I want to roll dice for a living, right?
Because careers are bad things.
Right, careers are bad things. So it's one of those little meta things in the text that's interesting to think about because for a 17-year-old, career is a scary word, I think.
Okay. And the career is obviously being used in this text to define the upper districts, District 1, 2, 3, who make a point to volunteer as tribute because this is what they're going to do with their lives.
Right. And on that same level, well, this isn't what they're going to do for their lives, though.
Oh, yes.
This happens once, right?
But if you win it, baby, that's it.
Oh, yeah, sure. So it's sort of like you've won the lottery, but you become that symbol. But the thing... Oh, forgot where I was going with that.
Talking about careers?
Oh, right. So from District 1 and District 2, those are the rich people.
Yes.
Career means something, right?
Okay.
If you're wealthy and you buy your way into USC and you get a career,
How topical of you.
Maybe you work for the state right? And you're not really doing anything, but you've got underlings who do it for you. Where Katniss comes from, career, I don't think she uses that word. People are making a living, right? That is what you have to do to survive. You do not have a separate path for career. People who have these fancy dancy careers go home to their home life.
Okay.
People where we're from make a living, right?
Okay.
So it's just a strange type of nomenclature thing there that people from District 1 and District 2 get to separate living from working.
And on a very basic level here, it's a nice little gem that Suzanne Callens has put in here, where there are people who, I mean, this is their life choice. Once I'm of age, baby, once I'm ready, I'm volunteering. Because if I trust myself, if I trust my skills and my training enough, it's one bad day, one bad work week, and then it's all coasting from here. It's an interesting concept, and it's completely realistic as well. I would like to argue on this, though. There might be some District 12 careers. Because think of it, if you are born into District 12, you are born into relentless poverty. You're not getting out of the situation. I guarantee there's going to be people who are like, hey, it's not going to get any worse. I'll give it a shot.
Well, I think that what you're actually pointing out is one of the weak points of the series. There's one Hunger Games a year.
Okay.
There are 2 people from each of those District 1 and District 2 careers
Correct.
that are going. We have no reason to believe that there's only 40 people there. This is going to be a heavier population. You're not losing children. You're not losing mothers and children in childbirth, for one thing, right? So you've got your population is going to be heavier, thicker. So there's going to be no volunteering from that district. It's going to be people who get picked because everyone wants to go, right?
Okay.
So everyone wants to go from there. And in district, so you have to be drawn because that's winning the lottery there. It's like a draft lottery in District 12. However, I am surprised there would be more people like Katniss who would not be training necessarily for the arena.
Correct.
But would have those hunting skills. It is sort of a hole in the novel, in this world that has been created, that is the only individual, her and, what's her friend's name? I'm blanking. Gale are the only ones that are sort of trained for it. And they would actually, in the arena, have a distinct advantage.
I'd agree.
Because we have no reason to believe that people from District 1 and District 2, while they're going through training, are authorized with lethal force.
Okay.
Whereas Gale and Katniss, they only know to, quote-unquote, shoot to kill.
Okay. I again, will make this point. Within District 12, these people who have spent their entire life in poverty, spent their life struggling and surviving, there's going to be more people in that district volunteering. Katniss is not going to be this weird exception. It's like, oh my God, she actually did it. Absolutely not. I've spent a lot of time, especially growing up with people who encompass this, weren't on the right side of the tracks, were scrappy people who fought to get by. And if I said, hey, you go into this thing here, you kill all these people, and you never have to struggle again, life is made, there's going to be more people volunteering.
Well, we have a very good example of this on a national stage every year.
Okay.
What sport is the closest to the Hunger Games? You might be tempted to say UFC, but that's not, I don't think that's technically right. I think the closest to it is football, because it is so multifaceted, right? Don't get me wrong, UFC is absolutely a much more brutal sport. The combat's more there, but football is all these people being thrown onto one field and told, hey, hit someone harder than anybody else.
Okay.
So if you look at an NFL roster, how many people do you think are from lower rungs of society?
A good chunk.
A good chunk. The only position really that is successful that you ever hear about, oh, well, this guy is the son of a former football player or a baseball player who was a millionaire, so they had money growing up, is quarterback.
Yeah.
Quarterbacks are people from District 1. Your defensive linemen are people from District 12. There are many more positions from District 12 than there are from District 1. So it's just an interesting thing to think about. But while we're on those sort of lines, one observation that struck me hardest in this section than it did in previous sections is the idea of gender. Both of these, so there is one male and one female tribute from each section, from each district, right?
Okay.
The tributes from District 1 and District 2 are both coming prepared. So, you have to believe people from District 1 and District 2 all start with a traditionally masculine upbringing. They're training physically, they are training in combat sports, they are training to be brutal, they are training to be killers from day one. Because even if you're raising a little girl who you want to be a ballerina or whatever you want her to be, like if you want her to be something that is traditionally feminine, you still have to train her against the fact that she might get drafted into the Hunger Games. And if in those cultures, that District 1 culture, if you get drafted into the Hunger Games, you have to go or you have to imagine you go where you're disgraced.
Fair.
Right?
Fair.
So both genders in those areas are raised masculine, right? Does that make sense?
I get what you're getting at. They're raised in the traditional ideas of masculinity. You know?
Yes. Yeah, and that's all I'm saying. Is the traditional ideas of masculinity, things like that.
I do think Collins does something very nice, though, where the idea of any kind of gender bias is pretty much stricken from this. We have our main character here is a woman, and she obviously stands the chance of survival better than anyone. But at no point, beyond the fact where she's just discussing with Peta, she's like, you're stronger than I am physically. At no point are we given any notion that being a woman may disqualify you from certain aspects of this, or being a man may be a better advantage, or vice versa. The women from District 1 are just as qualified to win this as the men from District 1. Which is kind of refreshing. It's something you don't normally get.
It would be much more refreshing if there were more projectile type weapons here.
Okay.
Because even the people that have been illustrated for us, these are brute force weapons, right? Brute force weapons. Rue, what district is she from? Do you remember?
11.
11. Okay. Rue is from District 11. Little itty bitty.
Now, Rue's not wielding a broadsword.
Right. Put a broadsword in her hands, she loses automatically. Do you remember the guy from District 11?
Yes.
What was he described as?
Basically the Hulk.
Basically a defensive lineman.
A defensive lineman.
Massive. You put him and Rue in the same room, and they've both got a pocket knife. One of them's walking out.
Okay.
Right? So all of these weapons that we have besides the bow and arrow are bludgeoning weapons. There are no projectile weapons. So
I disagree.
Well, the knives, I guess.
Throwing knives.
But again, that was coming from a female character.
Mm-hmm. Oh, fair. Very fair.
That
yes,
character was not walking up and slashing people's necks, right? So there is something I think to be examined there.
There's an examination between skilled dexterity and skilled strength, both lethal when utilized properly, but both different aspects of strength.
Yes.
So let's. Now we spent 20 minutes just kind of talking about.
Right, but one final sort of reflection there. The traditional masculine upbringing here, in our society, there's a bit of practicality for it.
Okay.
Because if those Ruskies decide to get their jimmies in a bunch and we have to go to war, who might be drafted?
Men.
Yeah.
Okay.
Women aren't going to be drafted. So you want your son to have a little bit of a physical edge.
Okay.
Now, that is...
utility behind it.
There is a utility behind it. There's a utility behind everyone being somewhat physical. But here, in these societies, everyone could be drafted. In fact, an equal number of women will be drafted as men.
Okay.
Right? So there's... I have not seen too much of that played with yet in the text. It would be interesting if it comes up later. I don't know. I am granting the skill. I am recognizing the skill here that Suzanne Collins might be saving that play for later.
Okay.
You know?
Now, speaking of skill and writing, we've talked quite a bit about, Suzanne Collins obviously doing some good work up to this preliminary part. But now we're in the action. We are in the action of the novel. Not as great prose-wise, we've talked about that a little bit, but I still think functional, and I still think fairly decently done. We did Harry Potter for the longest time, and one of our biggest complaints with J.K. Rowling was she was unable to write action. Everything was passive, everything was in the background. Suzanne Collins seems to be doing an okay job here. We have a couple little scraps. We have the initial scrap where she gets the backpack from the boy who gets a knife to the back. We get she witnesses a couple of battles, but that's witnessing action. And we get the ingenuity of dropping the tracker jackers, which honestly is not a bad scene.
Yes, that scene with the tracker jacker, that's great. That is a great moment for this book. What I will bring up is there is a difference between well-written action and well-thought-out action.
Okay.
So the scene with the tracker jackers, well written, you know exactly what's going on, you can see it, you can hear it, you can feel it, and one thing that was impressive, when you're thinking about this on a writing level, when is it that those tracker jackers get real pissed off?
When they get real pissed off?
Well, okay, no, when is it when those tracker jackers first get pissed off?
It's as she's
sawing. And why is that?
Because she's disturbing the nest.
Yeah, she's sawing at the branch, which I should not be doing those motions on the internet.
Gift time.
She's sawing at the branch, and as those serrated edges are tearing through that...
That's where she's taking a couple stings.
Right, the nest is going to be shaking.
It's agitating.
Right?
Correct.
A bad writer doesn't think about that. A bad writer lets that nest hit the ground and explode, right? However, there are some poorly thought out things in here. So when she's getting the backpack, she never sees that boy come up.
Okay.
She just is struggling with him. So that's bad, that's poorly thought out. The girl with the knives, there's no tension there because we don't see her with the knives.
Okay.
Afterwards, Katniss is just running away. We hear a knife whiz by us. Did she only have 2 or 3 knives? Why aren't we hit?
Okay.
Because we know that girl is an expert marksman, right?
I believe she hit, Katniss raised the backpack.
Right.
And she hit the backpack.
Is the backpack going to stop a knife? We don't know how big the knives are.
Okay.
We don't, you know what I'm saying? So there are things there that are well written. We can absolutely see them and follow them. But I don't think that bit of action was the best thought out.
Okay.
Because it feels, from a reader's perspective, as if it is all occurring to the character post hoc.
Okay. So maybe not written the best in here. I will give 100% realistic though. Have you ever actually been in like a physical struggle where like you are in immediate physical danger?
Right.
You don't notice anything by what's just in front of you.
You've got tunnel vision. But does that behoove the reader?
It does not. That's why I'm saying it's not the best written, but I think it is a very realistic adaptation of the writing. When you get into a physical struggle with someone like that, you're not going to notice somebody sneaking up and grabbing something.
Right.
You are focused on point A. That is where we are going. So realistic, yes, maybe not the best writing for the reader. Agree 100%. Let's talk just a little bit here while we have a little bit of time left about some different relationships with characters, or do you want to continue forward with other points in the novel?
I've got too much to talk about.
Oh dear, again.
We're going to have to. What were you talking about?
Relationships with characters. So PETA has kind of branched off and has formed an alliance with careers, but we do see towards the end of this that may be a bit of a faux alliance.
He's using his likability as a weapon.
Yes. We also see a little bit of an alliance forming with Rue, where Katniss does not attack Rue. At this point, she's right there, in the tree. Very easily could have snuffed Rue out. Rue could have been absolutely used as fodder for the careers, but she doesn't. So we're starting to see a little bit of partnerships opening up here, and Katniss even does mention that. Early days of the games, people do partner until it gets to the point where things are running slow, or running low, supply-wise, then you got to do what you got to do. So how are we feeling about this different branching of characters, forming alliances, and where are our characters that we haven't seen yet? The gentleman from District 11, we haven't had an appearance.
In fact, I think the male from 11 and is the foxy face female one of the District 1 or District 2 people?
I believe she's like mid-district, I think.
Okay, so those are the only two, if my math is correct, that we haven't seen and have not yet died. I think. Okay. I might be wrong. But I think those are like the only... Actually, no, that can't be right. Because there's 24 people here? There'll be 22.
I believe...
Which is actually 2 football fields. 2 football teams on a field.
Well, we had the 5 careers
who
were working together. We have PETA.
Yeah.
We have Rue. We have Katniss. We have District 11. We have Foxface. And there was one other that was mentioned.
Oh, okay.
I think it was a boy, but I think it was just listed as the boy from whatever.
Okay, so there's 11 people left that we know of.
Yes.
It's interesting. I'm assuming, like, you have to have... You've seen Gladiator, right?
Yes.
You remember the German?
I do.
I have to imagine the guy from District 11 gets that scene where he goes down in a blaze of arrows. Just thunk, 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 thunk. Like, not obviously, I don't think it's going to be Katniss that kills him. But he's having a memorable death scene.
Okay.
That's the only thing that I can forecast from this point.
This fair.
So I've got this quote from 143 where Katniss is thinking about PETA. And she says, this is where he's running around with the careers. He'll probably turn into one of the... No, I think this is beforehand. So she's thinking about what he's going to be in there. He'll probably turn into one of those raging beast tributes, the kind who tries to eat someone's heart after they've killed them. There was a guy like that last year, or like that a few years ago from District 6 called Titus. He went completely savage, and the game makers had to have him stunned with electric guns to collect the bodies of players he'd killed before, he'd killed before he ate them. There are no rules in the arena, but cannibalism doesn't play well with a capital audience, so they tried to head it off. There was some speculation that the avalanche that finally took out Titus was specifically engineered to ensure the victor was not a lunatic. So there is this debate about, and this is extraneous to the text, but it just makes me think about it. This debate about the utility of individuals like psychopaths running around. Okay. 1% of the population is a psychopath. Well, psychopath is a fairly broad range of things. Maybe 1 in every 1,000 people is that type of psychopath, right? Maybe 1 out of every 100 that type of psychopaths gets the correct tuning in their life to really go full psychopath, right? So you're talking about 1/1000% or whatever. What is the advantage to those people existing? Evolutionary advantage to those people existing.
Go on.
If that guy's in your tribe, you're winning the war.
Fair statement.
Right? This guy Titus, who's on the battlefield eating people's flesh, there's no teams on this field, right? In real life, there's teams.
Okay.
Tribal warfare, there's teams. You and I are in a tribe.
We want that guy.
Right, well, we don't have that guy.
Oh, okay.
But we see that guy eating people from our tribe. What do?
Not messing with that guy.
You're not messing, but you're watching him, aren't you?
Absolutely.
And you might get whacked from the other side.
And that is a great strategy. It could be argued that maybe Titus did not go insane. Maybe Titus was just using this as a strategy. He was sitting on the train with good old Hey Mitch, whoever his, trainer was, be like, well, honestly, I'm just going to start eating people. What are they going to do?
Yeah, eating hearts is a pretty hard strategy to develop in stomach, I have to imagine. But
you're at this point, if you don't do it, you're going to die. Why not?
Yeah, I
give yourself some intimidation.
And while we're talking about strategy, I'd like to jump to my last point. I've got some other points to make, but the end of this chapter, Katniss has that bow and arrow in her hand.
Yes.
What's the first thing you do?
What's the first thing you do?
In that
situation, you shoot PETA in the head.
I'm hunting me some Rue.
Yeah?
That little bitch is up in the trees. I can't find her. We're taking her out first.
Yeah?
She's like a little squirrel up there. Squirrels are vicious.
And Rue did get a very high rating, and it is actually mentioned, like, we're not sure how she got it, beyond the fact that maybe she just jumped around the building and didn't touch anything. That is an argument. And granted, at this point, Katniss is wounded. She's starting to hallucinate from the Tracker Jacker sting. She's not in the best shape. But again, once that bow and arrow's in your hand, that adrenaline kicks in, you start unloading. You have your weapon of choice. You have your decision maker, your peacekeeper here. What you're going to do to make sure we can survive? Unload. Take out everybody in sight.
Yeah.
That's your battle strategy.
Yeah.
So we'll yield to the fact that she is sickly and injured. That is what's off-putting her right now. But you are right. We need to start killing some people.
And my last, so if you don't, I've got 3 more points to make, 3 more things I think are worth talking about, but only one more that is in the text.
Okay.
So if you have any more after this, we'll hit that then. But we talked a little bit about the games as a metaphor for sexual selection.
Okay.
Right? Okay, so from 169, but if anyone is in my part of the woods, they ignore me. The truth is, I feel 1,000,000 miles away from another living soul. She's very alone, and she's very thirsty. Like, if we're using today's analogies, but
Go on, I'm listening.
she's very alone, and she's very thirsty.
Okay.
She is apart from the sexual selection.
Okay.
She is, it's like the old phrase, if we're looking at this as a sexual metaphor, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. She's pretty enough to be at the party. She's still not the one anyone's fooling around with.
Okay.
Right? Like, that's nothing inside the text. But if you're just looking about this as a sort of young adult sexual metaphor, she is in the clique, but she's not prepared
Okay.
to be selected, right? She runs away from it. She goes to the party and reads a book.
Okay. I didn't know where you were going with the thirsty reference. I had to prepare myself because I'm like, oh boy, this is going to be an adventure.
You looked like you were going to tell a story because you had to keep playing with your
Please
rocks.
take me on this adventure. Okay, understandable. We talked a little bit about the gladiator aspect. You brought gladiators up, and I was okay with this because that is 100% what this is. This is a modern gladiator arena. We even get the added element from the game makers when things just aren't exciting. We've had a couple off days here on the World Cup of the Hunger Games. Why don't we just poke the bear a little bit? Instead of throwing live animals into a gladiatorial arena, manufactured fire. So I think that's a great little touch there, where the gamekeepers are basically poking at the combatants because they're here to entertain. That's all this is. This is blood sport.
Well, and so you've got to die.
Yeah, might as well help a little bit.
It's a lot like sports in today's world. Baseball is timeless, right?
Okay.
Baseball doesn't have a game clock. But guess what? We've got television shows to run before and after the game, so you're going to speed it up. And they've put in a pitch count, right? So now they're doing things to make the game faster.
Okay.
So there is, I can't remember what it is. There's some rule now they're thinking about if a game is scoreless or whatever, putting a man on second base. The beginning of the inning, you've got someone on second.
Oh my.
Changes the entire dynamic of the game.
Yeah.
And it's not baseball anymore.
Okay.
This is not, once you start setting the woods on fire, gladiatorial. It's not survival. It's, hey, we need you to fight somebody.
It's entertainment.
Because we've got a show to run afterward. Friends is on next.
You can only watch
We've got
Bear
Friends-
Grylls stumble around the woods for so long
Right.
where you're like, you know what? I just want something to happen.
Or like they started doing, you know what? Let's put Shaq in there with him. Right?
Here's the thing, though. From a modern standpoint, if this was a real thing, if this was a real show, I bet my bottom dollar people are watching this. People are watching this in abundance. This is fascinating. This is exciting. So is this realistic? Absolutely. As dystopian and far-fetched as it is, this is absolutely 100% realistic. This is pure entertainment for entertainment's sake. I don't know if that's a good thing, but I'm going with it.
No.
Anyway, You had a couple more things you wanted to touch on.
Yeah, just a couple more things. We get this quote from 175. Probably, and this is about the fire in the woods. Probably this whole segment of the woods has been armed with precision launchers that are concealed in trees or rocks. Somewhere, in a cool and spotless room, a game maker sits at the set of controls, fingers on the triggers that could end my life in a second. All that is needed is a direct hit. That's drone warfare.
Okay.
And this is, where did we say this was, from 2008?
Yes.
I don't know, how long has drone warfare been a thing?
I believe 2008 would have been right about the real boom for drone warfare. That's when the technology was really hitting.
So I wonder if this is in response to that, or if it's just one of those freaky coincidences and foreshadowing that happens often in literature.
Okay. It's a good point to bring up because that's precisely what it is.
Yeah.
A man's going to kill you from sitting in his office 100 miles away.
On page 183, the careers regroup on the ground, and I can hear them growling conspiratorially among themselves, furious, and I have made them look foolish. This is a great example of a terrible use of an adverb.
Okay. You got some heat recently for your hate of adverbs.
I did, and I won that argument. I don't care what anyone says. Adverbs are terrible. Because what we're doing here, so for an adult text, you take conspiratorially out completely, and it's the same statement. Just one bad word shorter. The careers regroup on the ground, and I can hear them growling among themselves. Of course they're conspiring.
Okay.
That is what they're doing.
You tell me they're just not sitting down there.
Yeah. Oh man, I should have brought my deodorant.
It smells terrible in here.
Yeah, that is what they're conspiring. Okay. So if you think that your audience in a YA book is not able to get there on their own, that what they're doing is conspiring, that a younger reader might think that, oh, I just made them mad. Not that they're conspiring to come and get me. You show what they're saying. Mm-hmm. I heard the boy from District 1 say, I'm going to get her, right? And what does that do? That brings you closer to the text. It brings you into the scene. It does not take you back and say, conspiratorially. They were conspiring. It puts the conspiracy there in your eyes. You are real time with it as it happens. One of the problems with adverbs is that they are so very passive, right?
Okay.
You're not getting the actual event. You're not getting the actual scene. You're not getting the actual occurrence that is happening. You're getting a description, right? Adverbs are used for description, not for actual things. Not in ideas, but things.
If you haven't already heard the adverb argument, this is something Adrian holds very passionately. If you ever try to write or let Adrian read anything you've written, the adverbs will be highlighted.
Yeah, so just a brief story from my grad school days. Basically, my entire program was the same people in every class. Yeah. And by my second to last quarter, there were quarters there, people knew me as the adverb guy. People literally stopped using adverbs in their writing because they didn't want to hear about them. So one of my stories, I think it was my next to last story in the entire program. I was like, well, I've got to do it. So I thought of a title that would have an adverb in it.
Yeah.
And my story was called A Solomon Rapturously. And passed it out, whatever. We come back the day of critique, and there's this lady, and I used to have to get on her about adverbs all the time. And I did her a great service by doing so. Her writing improved. But we're sitting there, we're ready to critique my piece, and she sits there and she goes, holy shit!
In that exact voice?
Basically, yes. After a week of having the thing, it's sitting in front of her and she recognizes the rapturously in the title. And He goes, it's an adverb. And everybody goes, what? The title. And they all go, oh my God. I trolled my entire writing group.
Remind me to have shirts printed with like an old Western Adrian that just says, holy shit, it's an adverb. That is glorious.
Yeah, send us out.
Adrian, this was part 3 of The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. We will be back next week with the culmination of part 2 of the novel and part 4 of the series. I believe we're reading through chapter 18, the entirety of part 2, The Games. So if you like this kind of thing, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below and give this video a like as well. We always appreciate it. And join us here on our journey through Suzanne Collins' The Hunger Games. And if you'd like to help us create more great content like this here on Strip Cover Lit, there's a link, as always, to our Patreon to be found in the description below.